Also, let me know if some internet issue arises while explaining. So you can just tell me that it's slow. So basically, in client server model, we have one server. Let me change the color of the font. Just one simple explanation, short intro. We have server and then we have client like this. Okay. So client is basically it can be browser, mobile phone. Okay. So anything that sends a request, okay, anything that creates a request, that's a client. So you can say anything that creates a request. It can request a web page, it can request some data. All right. So that's client. Okay, so it's asking for something. Now the server is the thing that returns back response. Okay, so it will be more clear in API section when we learn API development. But server is something that processes the request from client and returns some response. Okay, it's also called request response cycle, by the way. So you can say client server model, this one, this is client server model. Okay, basic client server model. So in client server model, you have one server and then you have one client. That's it. The simplest concept. So what we were doing was we were working on the client. All right. So all the 6 months that we studied, so we were working on the client side. Okay. So client side can just deal with UI, user interface. Okay, interacting with the user, like clicking on a button. Right. On button click, what should happen, or on.
Your voice is breaking actually.
Okay, 1 minute. I think internet is bad today.
Is it? Prashant, can you help out?
Yeah, fine. 1 minute.
Yes. What's up?
Huh. So, ये
Prashant,
वाला
you,
हाँ.
are you getting clear or is it me though?
No, I call Airtel just now again.
The internet
Yeah,
lag and
occasionally
all.
it becomes bad.
I felt earlier. Something it's me, right? One second, I'll just try this now.
Okay, no
For
problem.
me, it's fine.
Yeah, actually I call Airtel just few minutes, few seconds ago. Let me use this brush tool. Okay, so basically we were studying client, okay, client-side development, or you can say front-end development. So we were dealing with things that ran on the browser, like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All these things ran on the browser, but we can also run code on the server, okay. So whichever code you run on the server, that will be server-side development, or you can also say backend development. All right. So whenever a client sends a request, always client sends some request. Remember, हाँ हम लोग का first of all दो चीज रहता है, एक client, एक server. So client sends a request to the server, then server returns back one response. Okay, this is request response cycle. Every time whenever client wants to load a new web page or some data, it will always send a request to the server. Then server will process the request. Okay, and then it will return back some data. It will return back some meaningful data or processed data. ठीक है. हाँ, तो इसमें कुछ क्वेश्चन है क्या? बेसिकली वी हैव टू थिंग्स, ओके, टू साइड्स, टू एंड्स, क्लाइंट एंड एंड सर्वर एंड. ठीक है, या फ्रंट एंड एंड बैक एंड. आई थिंक इंटरनेट इज, आई थिंक बोथ.
Mine is bad, Bhargav. I think.
Yeah, mine also occasionally become bad. I think
I
because.
just think though now it's working a bit though.
Mhm. Okay, so what I was telling, basically client sends a request to the server. Okay, so client will send a request, and then server will process the request. It does not like return back any response it likes. No, client, whatever request the client has sent, server has to process that request. So if the client is saying, show me this YouTube video with particular ID XYZ, then server will search for that YouTube video in the database. Okay, and then once it finds, it will return back that video to the client like that. So whatever client is requesting, the server will process that data, and then it will return back some kind of response. All right. Now the response can be anything. The response can be an image. The response can be a file. It can be HTML file. It can also be some PDF file. Okay, it can be anything. It can be XML. Understood. So the server can send any type of response. It can send some normal data also. It can send a text file. It can send a binary file. Okay, so the response can be any format. It can be a file format, image format. Okay, but whatever the client will request, that's a method. It's actually called. There are different types of requests actually. Get request, post request, like that. We will study in form submission later. But for now, just think that it's a simple request that client creates and server processes the request and it returns response. Till here, any confusion? This is just like introduction to client server model. Let me know. प्रशांत समझ में आया? This one? Could you grasp some basics?
I got somewhat though. There are two different servers, and one is acting two different devices. One is acting as a server, and another is a
Yeah,
client.
yeah,
And the client requests, and the server fulfills the request. Maybe
yes.
sometimes the server will also ask another server, maybe that is maybe done by
Mm-hmm.
APIs and all.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
तो प्रशांत को समझ में आया ये? Any questions you can ask here?
Although Baraja,
Hmm.
what would be load balancing, and what is that like? How, matlab,
I think
it will,
load
matlab,
balancing is advanced
how is it
concept.
useful in like
Huh. I think load balancing is an advanced concept. Basically, there are multiple servers, and when the requests are too large, which can happen for Google, YouTube, like that, right? So those like billion-dollar websites, you can say, or billion-dollar companies. So they have billions of users,
okay,
correct? So billions of users can send billions and billions of requests. So it's not possible for just one server to return a response like this. So basically, whatever request will come, they have thousands of servers. So they will decide to send which request to which server. Okay. So suppose request one is coming and it went to the server one. Then when request two comes, it will be sent to server number two, like that. They will divide the load basically. जो रिक्वेस्ट आएगा ना उसको मतलब इक्वली डिवाइड कर देगा सो दैट ऑल सर्वर्स गेट द इक्वल अमाउंट ऑफ व्हाट यू कॉल दे कैन प्रोसेस लाइक इन सेम अमाउंट ऑफ स्पीड ओके मतलब एक ही सर्वर
okay,
को पूरा प्रेशर नहीं
okay,
पड़ेगा द प्रेशर विल बी डिवाइडेड इक्वली सो अगर तुम्हारे पास
okay.
सपोज यू हैव 1000 सर्वर्स
But then, for example,
या
if I want to open a website, that website will be using matlab, maybe it's using AWS.
या
So it will be hosted in a particular server of AWS, or will it be distributed throughout the AWS ka network?
now I don't know now you have to know the architecture of how AWS designed their system so it's not possible for me to say because
Okay.
I have also actually not worked with AWS.
So
So
we
it
are
is
not as a
huh.
web developer, we do not need to be concerned about
Yes,
that.
yes.
We
You
need
don't
to
have to
just
be
be like,
concerned
right,
how it's
add the
hosted.
website.
Yeah.
Okay.
You only see the plans, the bandwidth
Okay.
it offers, like that, and then you purchase the plan. Yes, but you have to know how
Okay.
to do backend development, how
Okay.
to do this front end development. But this server administration part, we are not
Okay.
concerned with that. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So now अभी क्लाइंट साइड में हम लोग का लैंग्वेजेस अलग अलग होता है लाइक इन केस ऑफ मोबाइल you know in case of mobile development it can be Java, Flutter, React Native, like that. But in case of web development it can be JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So client technologies can differ depending on different client platforms. But the server technology, it can be common. Okay, so although there are different languages that you can pick one of them, like you can use C sharp, you can use PHP. So there are various languages that you can use for server backend development. Okay.
Okay. As well as Node.js, right?
Yes, Node.js is JavaScript on the backend itself. So these days you can also use JavaScript on the backend using Node.js. So you can select any single language, and then it will be universal. So it will work for mobile. Also, it will work for. It can serve client also. I mean, various kind of clients can be served with one same technology in the backend. Okay, but which language you select on the backend, it depends on you, or maybe it depends on the requirement of the application. Like if you have to use machine learning, artificial intelligence, then you have to use Python like that on the server. So now uh, the thing is that we have server side languages. Okay, we have particular server side languages. Some of them are PHP, Node.js, okay, Python. So these are some server side languages that run on the server. They don't run on the client. Okay, they run on the server. So what we have to do whenever we are doing in development, backend development, so we will need a server to run that program. Okay, so that's why we install XAMPP. So why we install XAMPP? Because it's a server side language. So to run this, you need a server. Okay, so you need a web server basically to run this application. So that's why XAMPP is a web server. Basically, it provides tools to create a web server, local host basically. It's called local host. So having a web server on your computer itself. Okay, so it comes with databases like MySQL. So it gives you inbuilt tools, which is very helpful for learning for beginners and also for development also, like basic PHP development or some medium scale development. Also, it's possible using XAMPP. Okay. So now, mostly we'll
Okay.
be concentrated in server-side development. Okay, in server-side development, we use server-side languages like PHP. So PHP runs on the server, not on the client. So that's why we must have some tool that can run our program, so that can create a web server. So which is XAMPP. Okay. So I will just show the bare basics of PHP. So first, what I will do, I will use XAMPP, and not only XAMPP, there are various other tools also like MAMP, WAMP. Okay, other tools also exist to run PHP and this MySQL. But XAMPP is one of them, and it's very popular. That's why I suggested to use XAMPP. Okay. So now, what you do? I think it was already open. So you search for XAMPP and open this control panel. It's called XAMPP control panel. Now what will happen? By default, these two options, Apache and MySQL. Okay. So these two options, it may not be installed. Okay. There may be a cross sign at the left side. So you just click this cross sign, then it will be installed. Okay. Suppose I have this FileZilla not installed. So I'll click this cross sign. Then it will prompt me, click yes to install FileZilla service. I will simply click yes, then it will be installed. Okay. So basically I install this MySQL and Apache. So make sure you install these two things just by clicking here on the checkbox. Okay.
Apache and MySQL, ना?
हाँ, तो MySQL लगेगा तुम लोग का SQL एंड वो डेटाबेस के लिए, एंड Apache होता है हम लोग का वेब सर्वर. बेसिकली दिस इज समथिंग दैट कैन रन, दिस इज द थिंग दैट एक्चुअली रन्स आवर PHP कोड. हाँ, Apache इज अ वेब सर्वर. हम लोग को मतलब एक वेब सर्वर चाहिए जो मतलब सर्वर साइड कोड को रन कर सके. हाँ, जो मतलब रिक्वेस्ट एंड रेस्पॉन्स को प्रोसेस कर सकता है, वेब सर्वर. So you have to install these two things. Then when you open XAMPP, installation should be done only once. Okay. Later you don't have to install again and again. But you may have to click this start button again and again. Okay. So make sure you click this Apache server start. Okay. इसको start कर देना server को. मैं stop कर देता हूँ. So I must start this web server. Okay. इसको क्या करना start करना पड़ेगा. So ऐसा होगा. By default it's not started. So I click this. ये start हो गया server. हाँ. So now it will be accessible. The web server has started. And now like we can write if we want. We can write our server side code. हाँ. मतलब एक server हम लोग ने अभी start कर दिया है. हम लोग के कंप्यूटर में. Okay. This will work only in our computer. Simply open XAMPP, install this Apache. Apache is a web server basically, very popular. Then start, click the start button. तो ये web server start हो जाएगा. So now this will be accessible. This will be accessible in our browser. हम लोग को local host type करना पड़ेगा. हाँ. This MySQL ना, ignore this for now. It's not required. So you can, we will use this whenever we start with our SQL classes. Okay. So इसको start करने के बाद simply you can minimize this. Now I can go to my browser and I can type localhost. Okay, localhost I can type. Simply type localhost. Don't type anything after that. तो हम लोग को अगर तुम लोग ने नया XAMPP इंस्टॉल किया है तो आई थिंक यू विल फाइंड सम वेब पेजेस हियर. मतलब इधर ऑलरेडी प्री डिफाइंड वेब पेज का डिजाइन आएगा. हाँ, तो अभी हम लोग को इधर मॉडिफाई करना पड़ेगा कोड. ओके, सो वी हैव टू राइट आवर PHP कोड हियर. मतलब हम लोग को डायरेक्टरी ढूंढना पड़ेगा. अभी जो भी XAMPP फोल्डर है ना उसको तुम लोग को ढूंढना है. एनी XAMPP फोल्डर. हाँ, सी में मिलेगा. हाँ, सी ड्राइव XAMPP like this. So search for the XAMPP folder first. XAMPP के अंदर ना एक फोल्डर होगा htdocs. Okay. First go to C, then XAMPP. इसका htdocs. htdocs फोल्डर में हम लोग को PHP का कोड मतलब क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. So by default इधर में ना there will already be some files here. If you have installed XAMPP newly, already मतलब नया से कुछ files रहेगा. So you have to delete all of these files. जैसे कि मैंने already delete किया है, you can see this htdocs folder is completely empty. So in this htdocs folder we have to create our PHP code. तो ये path ना मैं ग्रुप में भेज देता हूँ. तो पहले तो क्या करना है, देखो XAMPP में आओ. Apache अगर इंस्टॉल नहीं है तो इंस्टॉल कर लेना. This is basically a web server. It is mandatory to install this because we cannot run our server side or backend code without any web server. हाँ, यही वो चीज होता है जो रिक्वेस्ट एंड रेस्पॉन्स साइकिल को मतलब हेल्प करता है क्रिएट करने में. हाँ, विदाउट दिस इज नॉट पॉसिबल क्लाइंट सर्वर मॉडल. सो आफ्टर यू हैव स्टार्टेड दिस सर्विस, इसको स्टार्ट करना सर्विस को, यू हैव टू कम टू दिस XAMPP फोल्डर. ठीक है, तो ये पाथ को मैं भेज देता हूँ. तो XAMPP फोल्डर ढूंढ लेना, कभी कभी प्रोग्राम फाइल्स में भी रह सकता है, सी प्रोग्राम फाइल्स. एंड इन केस ऑफ लिनक्स यू टू सर्च द पाथ, ओके, वेयर XAMPP फोल्डर इज. देन गो टू htdocs फोल्डर. htdocs फोल्डर में कुछ फाइल्स रहेगा बाय डिफॉल्ट. तो इधर वेब पेज लोड होगा लोकल होस्ट में. बाय डिफॉल्ट कुछ फाइल्स रहेगा, तो सिंपली यू कैन डिलीट ऑल ऑफ दिस फाइल्स एंड एम्प्टी द फोल्डर. अभी हम लोग इसको VS कोड में क्रिएट करेंगे. ओके, आई मीन वी विल ओपन दिस फोल्डर इन VS कोड. एज यू नो VS कोड में हम लोग फोल्डर ओपन कर सकते हैं. Okay, just like opening files, we can open folders also. So what I'll do, click file and open folder. From here we will select our folder that we want to open. So we will go to this PC C drive, then select the XAMPP folder. Inside this you have htdocs. अभी htdocs folder को select folder करना. हाँ, select folder. Now we will get our folder directory. Click trust the authors. तो ये फोल्डर डायरेक्टरी हम लोग का VS कोड में ओपन हो चुका है. नाउ वी व्हाटएवर फाइल्स वी क्रिएट हियर, व्हाटएवर फोल्डर्स वी क्रिएट, इट विल बी क्रिएटेड इनसाइड द htdocs फोल्डर. अभी हम लोग को PHP फाइल कैसे क्रिएट करते हैं, जस्ट आई एम टेलिंग द बेसिक्स ऑफ PHP. ओके, this is not a class on PHP because PHP's class will start tomorrow, like how to create variables, how to create this that. Okay, just the basic, how to declare a PHP file, how to create. So we can say index.php. So index file is basically the file which loads by default. Okay, जब कोई भी हम लोग वेबसाइट का नाम को टाइप करते हैं, so whichever like it's the default page you can say. हाँ, default web page. तो पहले हम लोग ने क्या किया था, we used to write index.html. Now instead of HTML we will write index.php. Okay, this is how you have to write. You have to put the .php extension after the name of the file. ठीक है. Now when we go back to our local host, this one, just local host type करना है. Okay, this will load our server. जैसे हम लोग google.com सर्च करते हैं, so this is the address of their server which is hosted live, but this is our local server in our own computer. So when I reload this, तो अभी देखो अभी empty page दिखा रहा है, right? Before we created this, there was nothing. मतलब उधर कुछ आ रहा था like this file empty folder, कुछ वो directory का नाम ऐसा आ रहा था. But as soon as we created our index.php file, ठीक है, अभी empty दिखा रहा है. Now suppose we type something like, as you know, some basic h1 tag भी हम लोग बना सकते हैं, right? We can say hello PHP like this. तो ये directly आ जाएगा, देखो hello PHP. ठीक है. So this time it is actually coming from a web server. Okay, this is not just a simple HTML file that's running on the browser. This is actually running on the server. Like if you had uploaded it, how it would have worked is just working in the same way. ठीक है. So now the thing is that in PHP file, whatever HTML code you wrote, it's fully valid here. Okay. ठीक है. You have to remember this. Any HTML code that you wrote before, like creating Swiggy or Fiverr, whatever practice you did, if you copy and paste the entire code same to same here, like using head tag, as you know, HTML colon 5, body, title, these are optional. Okay, so you can also directly write text like h2, ul tag. I think I told this or no, I don't know, but you can also start directly writing those tags. But the problem will be you won't be able to add CSS, you won't be able to customize the parts of the web page. Okay, so that's why it's always recommended to start with the proper template. ठीक है. So whatever code you wrote or whatever you learned before, it's fully valid inside .php files. ठीक है. और इधर तो कुछ confusion नहीं है. Any confusion you can ask. Just the extension is different.
The video I can't see. Video sharing. So I'll watch the video later. I am understanding for now.
Yeah. So just the extension video. So video is not visible, right, for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's from my end as well.
प्रशांत को समझ में आया little bit?
Yes, bro.
Okay. So now the benefit of using .php extension is that now you can write PHP code here. Okay. Not just HTML. This is actually valid PHP code. Okay. So you can mix together. Now to write any PHP code, okay, the syntax that it starts is like this: angle bracket, okay, question mark, PHP, like this. So you have to first do this declaration: angle bracket, question mark, then you have to type PHP. Okay, so now you have to end this. The closing is like this: question mark, angle bracket. So now between these two parts, angle bracket, question mark, PHP, and this question mark, closing angle bracket. So in between these two parts, you can write any valid PHP code. Okay. Just like how we used to write JavaScript code inside script tags, you remember, like this: opening script tag, closing script tag. We used to write JavaScript inside this, right? So just like this, to write PHP code inside this tags, what you have to do, you have to do this declaration. Okay, so this is the special declaration. It tells that from here PHP code is going to start, and here the PHP code ends. Okay, so question mark, like this, angle bracket, question mark, PHP. There should not be any gaps. Okay. You can also finish in one line, but you won't have enough space to write code. So I recommend breaking it down into multiple lines. Okay. One minute. Yeah. So basically PHP कोड हम लोग को इसके अंदर लिखना पड़ता है. So you have to remember this syntax. Huh? Now this can repeat anywhere. Okay. ये हम लोग ऊपर भी लिख सकते हैं, नीचे भी लिख सकते हैं. We can repeat multiple times. जहाँ जहाँ हम लोग को PHP कोड डालना है, in between the parts of a web page, we have to use this snippet. Okay. So this is the snippet in between which we have to write our PHP code. Now अभी PHP में हम लोग को क्या है, सबसे सिंपल चीज है echo. Okay, echo बोल के हम लोग का एक चीज है echo command. So using this echo command, okay, so we can use this string. ठीक है, simply we have to write echo. And also remember, in PHP semicolon is mandatory. Okay, there's a big difference. In JavaScript semicolons were optional. JavaScript, Python, all these languages, they don't require semicolon. You can put your semicolons if you want, but in PHP it's mandatory. If you don't put semicolons, there will be errors. Okay, except for the last line, I guess. For the last line, the semicolons should be optional, but still let us check. So in echo, हम लोग को echo बोल के एक सबसे simple command है हाँ PHP में, which prints an output. Okay, it gives an output just like console log. JavaScript में जैसे console log हम लोग का कुछ output देता है, right? Just like JavaScript, PHP is a different programming language, but here you have echo. Okay, so echo is something that gives an output from the language. So after typing this echo command, you have to put a space, then you can open strings. Okay, you can use single quotes, you can use double quotes, just like JavaScript. Okay, so there is benefit of learning JavaScript because now you know that it will be similar. Okay, because once you learn a particular language, once you grasp the basics of a language, no matter what language you go into, it always is it's easier. Now we can say from echo. ऐसा मैंने एक message create कर दिया from echo like this. ठीक है. Now if we try to reload, अभी देखो from echo आ रहा है. This is coming from PHP. Okay, from echo. ये जो है, so basically it's creating a code. Okay, मतलब इस चीज को मतलब HTML में output कर देता है PHP. If we check our view page source, if we check our source code, you can see from echo. देखो ये इधर PHP कोड गायब हो गया. Whichever thing you wrote here, question mark, PHP, ठीक है, this thing completely disappeared. Only those things are left which you have echoed. Okay, जो जो चीज तुम लोग ने echo किया है, बस वही बच गया है. Like this. Understood? Other parts, they are removed completely by the server. Now अभी from echo, here also you can put tags. Okay, HTML tags भी डाल सकते हो. UL, फिर U, HR डालता हूँ मैं, HR. You can put HR tag. I can say B tag, bold, /B, like this. I can also write HTML here. Whatever I echo here, it will come out here. हाँ, view page source में directly आ जाएगा. ठीक है, HTML हम लोग का फाइल में आ जाएगा. Whatever things you echo from this PHP code, this will directly become a part of HTML. which means that if you reload the page you will get to see your valid HTML because browser हम लोग का HTML को run करता है, right? After all, so whatever HTML we have generated from our PHP code, that will finally be rendered by the browser. ठीक है? इधर में शायद confusion होगा ना? This one, this can be slightly confusing. Vipul, are you getting it? Or I think it is.
Yes, I understood a bit.
ठीक है, प्रशांत?
No confusion, bro.
Okay. So अभी देखो, as you know, this is a programming language now, which means we can also use for loops. Okay. Now PHP में variable कैसे बनाते हैं? Very easy. Same to same as JavaScript, but in JavaScript the difference is we use var. Okay. Suppose JavaScript इधर तो नहीं लिखते हैं. JavaScript we write inside the script tag like this. तो हम लोग script tag के अंदर JavaScript code लिखते हैं, which is a different programming language. It runs on the browser. PHP runs on the server. Okay, it's a backend language. It's different. PHP browser में run कभी नहीं होता है. ये server में run होके आता है. Okay. Now in JavaScript we create variables like this. Variables are just things that store our data. Like in ATM machine, what we did, we stored balance, we stored the number one, number two, like this, starting amount, ending amount, like that. So variables are used to store data. So we most of the times we create variable I, then we run for loop I equals to 0, I less than 10, like this, I plus plus. Inside this for loop, we write code, then it runs 10 times, right? So for loop also exists in PHP, but the way you define variable is different. You have to use $sign to create a variable. So I will say $sign I equals to 0 instead of writing variable I equals to 0, which happens to be the case in JavaScript. So as you know, from language to language syntax differs. Like if you study Python, language is different, like syntax is different. In C++, syntax is different to create variable, like that. So we have to use $sign. So every single variable, wherever you use, you have to use $sign. Okay. Immediately after the $sign, there should not be any space. Then put the variable name. I can put any variable name. I can say name. I can say amount. Whatever variable name you want. For my case, I will use I because I want to create a for loop. Now, for loop syntax is same in most of the languages. They use same type of for loop. Like syntax is same. Whether you go from C, JavaScript, or PHP, the syntax is same for loop. So you have initialization in the beginning. $I starts from 0. $I less than 10 if you want to run 10 times. Then $I plus plus like this. Okay. Then you have braces, just like normal braces in JavaScript. So this is a for loop in PHP. So you can see the only difference that we are getting to see is the variable declaration, where you have to use $sign everywhere you are using the variable. Now, which means this echo command will run on the server 10 times. Okay, so this will be generated 10 times. You can see on our HTML code now, we can see it's generated 10 times. Also, if we check our view source code, you will see it coming 10 times like this. Okay, so right now it's not wrapping the text, but if we use this wrap text, you can see HR, BTEC, HR, BTEC, this is being generated 10 times. Okay, so you can see it okay, so there might be a question that it looks same as JavaScript, right? Like you can also write for loop on JavaScript as well as you can write also for loop on in PHP. So what is the difference? Isn't there any question in your mind like difference क्या हो सकता है? Like we are able to do the same thing after all. ऐसा कुछ क्वेश्चन नहीं आ रहा है माइंड में? Like you can see the power of for loop. Like it's a concept of any programming language that for loops help you to run any code repeatedly. Loops basically, as we studied fundamental concepts of programming. But ऐसा क्वेश्चन नहीं आ रहा है that इसमें PHP में भी कर सकते हैं सेम थिंग एज वेल एज जावास्क्रिप्ट में भी सेम थिंग कर सकते हैं. तो इसमें डिफरेंस क्या है? और कैन यू पॉइंट आउट द डिफरेंस? व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस हियर? प्रशांत को डिफरेंस कुछ दिखाई दे रहा है इसमें बिटवीन PHP एंड जावास्क्रिप्ट? The way we are doing the things. Let me know. डिफरेंस दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है? जावास्क्रिप्ट में हम लोग क्या यूज करते हैं? डॉट इनर HTML यूज करते हैं ना. सपोज वी हैव सम div एलिमेंट, उसके अंदर हम लोग को कुछ एलिमेंट डालना है, सो वी विल यूज div डॉट इनर HTML या फिर whichever name we have given equals to और या फिर plus equals to concatenate करके हम लोग for loop में यूज करते हैं। लेकिन इधर कुछ inner HTML नहीं है, ठीक है। विपुल, am I audible?
Yes, Varaja.
Okay, okay. So I'm telling the difference. Okay. So let me run this 5 times. By the way, it's too much. The difference that look, what is happening actually right now, we are using a web server. We are not just loading an HTML file to the browser. Okay, we are using a web server right now. So it's a real, it's like just like behaving like a real server. Okay, just how like real server works, it takes a request from the client and returns back some response. Okay, similarly, whenever we are requesting to this local host, okay, so it's receiving the request. So whichever हम लोग ने जो Apache server इधर start किया है ना, this is the server. Okay, this is the server. So we have installed the server into our system through the help of XAMPP. All right. So this server is receiving the request. As soon as we are reloading the page, this browser is sending a request to the server. Now in our case, it's loading instantly. Why? Because it's the server is in our own computer itself. It's local server. It's called local host. Local server. Basically, it's called local host. ठीक है? तो इसका एड्रेस ऑल्टरनेटिव एड्रेस भी है 127.0.0.1. This is the IP address of local server. Okay, 127.0.0.1. इसको हम लोग सर्वर नेम टाइप करने से लोकल होस्ट लिखते हैं, ठीक है। सो दिस बिहाइंड द सीन्स कन्वर्ट्स टू दैट IP address. Okay, so what happens when you're sending request to this server? So the server is processing the request, ठीक है, and then it is returning back the processed output. हाँ, हम लोग को HTML file return कर रहा है. You can see, and this HTML file contains the code from the server. हाँ, it contains the processed code. It does not contain the source code. क्योंकि view source करने में हम लोग को PHP का part दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है. Okay, because क्यों? This PHP was executed now by the server, and now only the output remains. Okay, इसको जब सर्वर हम लोग का एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, ओनली द आउटपुट विल रिमेन, ओके, व्हिच हैपेंस टू बी द पार्ट ऑफ दिस एको कमांड. एको से जो भी ये आउटपुट दोगे ना, तो ये मतलब इस फाइल में आ जाता है. हाँ, जिस भी पार्ट में तुमने एको दिया है, तो इट स्टेस इन दैट फाइल द आउटपुट. सो ये सर्वर हम लोग ने सर्वर ने मतलब जेनरेट करके दे दिया है इसको. हाँ, इसको सर्वर ने जेनरेट करके दिया है. देन द क्लाइंट रिसीव्स दिस HTML फाइल एंड देन इट सिंपली रन्स इट, ठीक है। अगर हम लोग इसको सेम थिंग को जावास्क्रिप्ट में करते, देन द थिंग वुड बी दैट ये जावास्क्रिप्ट कोड को लोड करता, तो बाय डिफॉल्ट हम लोग का सोर्स कोड में ये कोड नहीं रहता है, तो यूजिंग जावास्क्रिप्ट वो ऐड हो जाता इन फ्यूचर, बट डायरेक्टली मतलब बॉडी के अंदर वो नहीं रहता स्टार्टिंग केस में. हाँ, आई डोंट नो यू गॉट इट और नॉट, बट क्वेश्चन है तो पूछ सकते हो. इन फ्यूचर आल्सो विल कम बैक टू दिस, ठीक है। सो दिस इज हाउ यू राइट PHP. हाँ, नाउ यू कैन रिपीट दिस एनीवेयर, यू कैन आल्सो राइट हियर, ठीक है। From here you can also output JavaScript code. Okay, I can say console.log hello world, ठीक है।